Say that differentiation is more important than it ever has been to make sure that you're meeting the needs of individual students, which is step one of response to intervention. Making sure that when you know that a child isn't getting it, that you're documenting what you're doing to solve that. And what that looks like is different. And hopefully you would have strategists on your campus that would be able to work you through what those interventions might look like. Mr. Waller?
That's good. I think the key, though, for especially in the beginning of RTI is that, you got to do what's best for each kid. And I think people sometimes skip that part of it. Is the very first step of RTI is just good teaching. And if I'm not getting something, then what is my teacher doing to make sure that they find everything they can to help me succeed? And I think that's where new teachers sometimes, because they're so busy and there's so many other things going on, they don't think about, well, this is just, if I meet this child's need, I'm actually given the response to intervention.
The requirements for data and understanding data are so huge these days that you just use your data and make sure that when you get the data that you don't just find out what the problems are, but that you actually are coming up with solutions to meet the needs of kids that aren't achieving at the level that you want them to. So with the information that we already gather, you should have enough documentation to say whether the child is achieving at the level that they should be or not. So providing intervention anytime that they're not. Definitely it has, in that the classroom teacher has provided has documented such a longer amount of time with intervention before special ed ever gets involved in it, that we've found it to be more kids get identified that actually get tested. It's just that fewer kids get tested. So I think that's the major way it's changed it.
Well, and used to, you could just refer anybody, with a few qualifications and they would test them. Now you have to use that data that we talked about in the last question to prove that, look, there are gaps in this child's learning, and I've tried 2 or 3 different ways. And so it's put more onus back on the classroom teacher to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, making them more accountable before we send them on to testing.
The most common one that you hear people say is that it's the road to special ed, and it's actually, as he said, the classroom teacher is providing those interventions that previously we depended on special ed to provide. So not necessarily a road to special ed, but bringing more of those interventions into the regular ed classroom and enabling the classroom teacher and showing how the classroom teacher is providing those interventions. And then the second piece of that is the measurement piece. We've always provided interventions, but we haven't always measured those interventions at the level at which RTI expects you to do that. And so you have pretty clear documentation of whether the child is achieving at the level, making progress at the level that you would expecting them to be based on the interventions that you're providing. Be sure that you are documenting your interventions. Most districts will provide what that looks like for you, but you have to figure out your own record keeping system, whether it's antecedent notes or how you're used to doing that, how you get those kids in guided reading groups, and then how you document once you've had them in there. It's just a matter of keeping that documentation, because I find that teachers are very good at identifying who's struggling and what the kid needs and providing those interventions. It's just that paperwork piece that gets in the way. So figuring out your own record-keeping system, whether that is using the forms that the district provides, or if you want to come up with your own system and then transfer that over to the forms, just make sure you're keeping those records.